Six-time national motocross champion Bob Hurricane Hanna is one of the greatest motorcycle racers in history. When he recently discovered ATVs, Bob came to the sport with a head towards safety.
There's no doubt about it. That's fun. But we all recognize an ATV can also be dangerous if used improperly. If you buy one and hide it in the back of your garage, it's not very likely anyone's going to get hurt on it. Parked, an ATV is pretty harmless. It's also pretty boring. So assuming that you're interested in ATVs as something other than sculpture, there are some things you need to know to avoid a serious or fatal injury. It can be tempting to hop on a spanking new ATV and take off, but don't do it. Even the most experienced riders won't just climb on an unfamiliar machine and ride off. Take the time to carefully read and understand the owner's manual. Paying close attention to the manual could save you from severe or even fatal injury. Read and comply with all the labels on the ATV. These labels address warnings about potential hazards. We'll go into the details of these warnings through the course of this video. Unsure about something? Check your owner's manual or see your dealer. Use the manual to familiarize yourself with the location and function of the various controls on your machine. The owner's manual also contains important information about operating an ATV. Because ATVs handle differently than motorcycles and cars, ATV riding requires special skills and knowledge that must be learned and practiced over time. The owner's manual will help acquaint you with the features of your ATV. Once you've read the owner's manual and feel confident that you're ready to ride, start by practicing at low speeds in an open, off-road area away from obstacles and other riders. Take an approved training course. The ATV industry strongly recommends that all new riders take an authorized ATV rider training course. Why? Because experience is the best teacher, and there's no better way to start accumulating those hours in the saddle than under the watchful eye of a trained instructor. If you bought your ATV after December 30th, 1986, rider training is free. You and every member of your immediate family in the recommended age group for the ATV you bought are entitled to take a training course at no charge. If you bought your ATV after April 28, 1988, you're entitled to a $100 U.S. savings bond or $50 cash, or a merchandise certificate upon completion of the course. Ask your dealer for details or call 1-800-447-4700 for information. A good ATV rider training course provides knowledge and skills to help ensure new riders get started on the right foot. Let's switch from new riders to young ones. Although parents are ultimately responsible for deciding whether or not their kids are qualified to ride an ATV of a certain size, there are some recommendations to help. A child under 12 should not operate an ATV with an engine size of 70 cc's or over. ATVs with engine sizes of 70 to 90 cc's are for riders 12 and over. And a child should be at least 16 to ride any ATV with over 90 cc's displacement. These are only recommendations, however, and discretion should be used beyond them. No child under 16 should be allowed to ride any ATV without adult supervision at all times. Maturity is the important factor. A child may not have the strength, skill, or judgment necessary to ride an ATV safely, even though they may meet age recommendations. Parents have to be extremely careful when deciding whether or not their child possesses the necessary skills to ride an ATV. The parents should allow continued use of the ATV only if they determine that their child has the ability and judgment to operate the ATV safely. Allowing a child to use an ATV that is not recommended for his or her age group may increase the risk of severe injury or death of the child. Start your kid out with proper instruction. If they learn to do things the right way from the start, they should develop good habits that help ensure safety is part of their enjoyment of the sport. Let's take a quick look at some correct riding techniques. While watching these techniques, bear in mind that it's important to practice. No one starts out a great ATV rider. You have to practice in order to progress from basic to more complex maneuvers. Body movement is part of riding an ATV. For instance, you lean in the direction of the turn when cornering. On more challenging terrain, you'll find that you'll move your weight around for balance and comfort. In a spot with as much variety as this one, riders won't sit in the same place on the seat for more than a few seconds at a time. When climbing up a hill, you move forward to keep your weight distributed so that the front end won't lift up. Downhill, move your weight toward the back to reduce the chance of overturning, and apply the brakes carefully to reduce speed. Choose a path that's free of obstacles as straight downhill as possible with no places that might force you to make a sudden turn. Avoid hills with excessively steep, loose, or slippery surfaces. Lean toward the uphill side when traversing a hill to reduce the chance of overturning. Always check the terrain carefully before heading up or down a hill. And inexperienced riders should avoid hills and rough terrain altogether until they have mastered the various riding techniques on level ground. Obviously, there is a great deal more to learn about ATV riding. We've looked at a few correct techniques and identified some hazards. We've also set up my next point. Watch this. So far, so good. These riders obviously recognize the contribution good riding apparel, boots, gloves, helmets, and eye protection make toward a safe and enjoyable ride. Sadly, their next impulse isn't as smart. This is a big no-no. Responsible riders don't carry passengers. ATVs are not designed to carry passengers. As we've just seen, the seats are long enough to allow a solo rider to shift body weight for different riding situations. A passenger anywhere on the ATV greatly reduces the operator's ability to control the vehicle. There are no handholds, no passenger footrests. In addition, a passenger can't possibly know from second to second what the operator is going to do next, so they can't shift their weight in any helpful way. All in all, what we have here is a formula for disaster. They may ride around all day without incident, then again,
don't stack the deck against yourself. An ATV accident can result in a serious injury or even death. Take a look at these two surfaces. One's hard and flat, the other's loose and uneven. I'm not an engineer, but I know that a vehicle designed for optimum performance on one of these surfaces would behave differently when operated on the other. ATVs are designed for off-road use only. They come equipped with large, low-pressure tires for traction on off-road surfaces such as loose sand, dirt, or mud. The familiar way the machine behaves off-road can change when it is ridden on pavement. See the change in traction? The greater amount of traction the tires get on pavement makes the steering feel heavier. It's harder to make the ATV turn. As a result, it may require more steering effort than expected to corner on pavement. The increased traction can also make the ATV respond more abruptly to rider input. The bottom line is, the ATV is designed for off-road use, so don't ride on pavement. Why risk it? You buy an ATV for off-road recreation. If you want to ride around on pavement, use a motorcycle or car. And speaking of cars, The danger for an ATV out there is obvious, but you know, it can be dangerous to ride an ATV on any public road, even quiet, seldom traveled dirt roads.
You're riding along having the time of your life when the trail intersects a public road. Out there, danger lurks. You don't see anything, but a car, truck, or bus could come whizzing around the corner without a moment's notice. You wisely turn around and head the other way. The danger lies in the fact that street traffic and ATVs aren't used to mixing with one another. Drivers aren't looking for ATVs on the road. Meanwhile, you're riding along on your ATV in a completely different frame of mind than if you were driving. Chances are you won't be thinking about cars either. So if you venture out onto a public road, there's a real risk of collision with another vehicle. This applies to any road. An ATV zooming down a street is an unfamiliar sight to someone driving a car, and drivers often fail to see things they're not looking for. In most states, it's illegal to operate an ATV on public streets, roads, and highways.
Even though I think it looks pretty sharp, This outfit I'm wearing isn't just a costume. These clothes are designed specifically for protection. Every ATV rider should wear an approved helmet and eye protection, either goggles or a face shield. Over the ankle boots, long pants and long sleeves, preferably of heavy material, and gloves. I've been riding ATVs for years now, and putting on the appropriate gear, rather than seeming like a project, has just become automatic for me. Think of safety gear as part of the package. You, your protective gear, and the ATV. The consequences of not having that safety gear on when it's needed can be serious. You increase your risk of severe head injury or even death if you experience an accident while riding without a helmet. Choose an approved helmet that fits well and wear it whenever you ride. Riding without eye protection can result in an accident and increases your chances of a severe injury if you do have an accident. Goggles or a face shield help to keep stuff like rocks and tree branches out of your eyes. Not only could these injure your eyes, but being distracted or temporarily blinded could lead to an accident and severe injury. In many situations, protective clothing makes the rider much more comfortable. Appropriate clothing shields you from the elements, and if you do have an accident, can help reduce or even eliminate some injuries. Being properly outfitted also makes it much easier to concentrate on your riding. And that brings me to my next point, concentration. An ATV rider must be constantly alert. I suppose you could say the same thing about someone driving a car too, but it's especially important when riding off-road. On the streets, there are signs, signals, painted lines, a whole system designed to inform drivers about what's happening and what they should be doing. Off-road, you'll seldom, if ever, get that kind of help. So it's up to each rider individually to be responsible and constantly on the lookout for potential hazards. Think ahead. Maybe someone's coming over the hill from the other side. Maybe it drops off steeply. Most of it's just common sense. When you're on unfamiliar ground, you would naturally slow down and look for hazards. You have to expect anything and everything. Exercise care and allow yourself enough time to react to hidden rocks, bumps, or holes that might lie ahead. You don't want to be surprised. Discovering a hazard the hard way could result in loss of control or worse. It's also important to recognize that you can't decide before you leave how fast you're going to go. You can't just say, I'm going to go 10 and take off. Your speed has to be adjusted and readjusted to suit the different riding conditions you encounter. On rough ground like this, slow down and be extra careful. Remember, you have to take into account visibility and how familiar you are with the terrain in order to determine the right speed for a given set of circumstances. As important as the external riding conditions are the internal ones. Know your own limitations and don't attempt to ride beyond your capabilities and experience. The landscape is just one factor. What may seem like easy terrain to an experienced rider can challenge the abilities of a novice. Be your own judge. Don't assume a riding area is easy just because other riders make it look easy. Riding an ATV requires a clear head, so don't try to do it under the influence of alcohol or drugs. All your skill, experience, and natural ability will be impaired. The common sense and good judgment you need to ride an ATV will fly right out the window. It's dangerous to operate power tools under the influence, it's dangerous to drive a car, and it's also dangerous to ride an ATV under the influence of alcohol or drugs. This sort of activity should be mentioned while noting that an ATV is not a toy. There's a great deal of danger here and very little reward. There are many maneuvers you'll need to master to become a better ATV rider, but they'll all have a purpose. Stunts are difficult maneuvers without a purpose. They're dangerous to the rider attempting them and increase the chances of an accident, including an overturn. Never attempt stunts such as wheelies or jumps. Don't try to show off. When you weigh the risks against the benefits, I think you'll agree, stunt riding just isn't worth it. Remember, an accident can occur quickly, even during a routine maneuver, so always be alert and never drop your guard. A momentary distraction may lead to a serious injury. Read your owner's manual and the labels on the vehicle.
Get proper instruction before you operate an ATV. Kids should only ride the right size ATV and only with adult supervision. Never carry passengers. Never ride on pavement. Never ride on public roads. Always wear protective gear. Never operate an ATV at excessive speeds. Don't attempt stunts. They can be dangerous.
Never try to ride under the influence of drugs or alcohol. ATVs are fun and useful machines. Learn to operate yours properly and exercise good judgment. Follow the safety guidelines provided by the manufacturers, and your riding time will not only be more enjoyable, but safer too.